Everyone, Pete here. Just a quick test that the sound is okay. We had some problems with it at the beginning of last night's broadcast with Chris. So if you have joined the broadcast early, please just give it a like. Do share this as well so we can get more people on it, more people who are going to learn what fantastic information Sam is going to share with you all this evening. So remember, if you're on Facebook, do like and share this post with your friends, or just share it on your profile so it gets out to more people. We'd be extremely grateful for that. But also, if you could just comment anything, probably along the lines of, yes, I can hear you okay, or if you can see me talking but can't hear me, please let me know so I can address those issues before we go live in 7 minutes time. So sit tight, folks. Please do comment. Let us know that you are listening and you can hear me loud and clear. That would be fantastic. Thank you very much.
mic is unmuted. Just need to move back. That's great there, Sam. You're good. That's it, perfect.
So like to go?
Yeah, all good to go, Sam. Here we go.
Right, folks, welcome down to tonight's live lesson. Not so much a lesson, more just a bit of an informative one about shafts. A lot of people don't really know too much about shafts, and if you're coming down to a place like June's and getting fitted for clubs, you don't really need to know too much about shafts, but I'm just going to give you a little bit of an insight anyway to what a different shaft can possibly do for you, and also what the shafts come under, the different points of the shafts that we need to look at as well. So I'll just get right into it. I think at the end of this lesson, what I'm going to do is I'm going to test a few different shafts out, and we're going to have a look at the results just to see how much of a difference it can actually make to your shots. I'm going to hit 3 different golf shafts in the driver. I'm going to hit a ladies flex shaft, a regular flex shaft, and an extra stiff flex shaft, all with the same driver head. And then I'm going to do a little test on an iron shaft as well, where it's going to be both stiff shafts, but one's going to be graphite and one's going to be a steel shaft. So the first main thing you can get differences in shafts is going to be your material. A lot of people know this one. So the majority of the shafts are made out of either steels or graphites. They are now starting to come out with combination shafts, which are actually more like a graphite shaft with metal through them, which is, I've not really had much chance to try any of them out yet, but they sound very interesting. So basically that's your 2 options, graphite and steel. Okay, that's what we're going to do for the materials. The next thing you can look at in shafts is the weight of a shaft. All this is down here. I don't know if, can you guys see this? Is that in the shot?
It might be difficult to pick up, but those little numbers, Sam, what do they say?
So every shaft will come with sort of a range of figures on them that will tell us what the shaft's there to do and help you do. So this one here, for example, is a hazardous smoke shaft, and it's got 4 details on it. It's got a 6.0, which is the stiffness of the shaft. In this case, that's how the Project X determine their stiffnesses by the scale. I think it runs from 4.0 up to 7 or 7.5, I can't remember. So 6.0 is a stiff for them. It also has on here the weight, which is 70 grams. It's interesting that although it says 70 grams on the shaft, depending if this was a stiff or an extra stiff, they possibly both say 70 grams, but it's not the true weight of a shaft sometimes. Typically, the stiffer the shaft is, the heavier it will be, but that's called the weight category rather than the exact weight. It just gives you an idea. So sometimes you'll get 60 grams stated on the shaft, or you'll get 70 grams stated on the shaft, and they can usually vary up to sort of 5 grams difference. It also has at the bottom here, it says low spin. Now, hazardouses are quite known for having low spin, just due to the different tip strengths in them. I'll explain a little bit more about that in a minute. What else has got on it? It's also got a 3.5 on it, which represents the amount of torque, and I'll also speak about that a little bit. So, thinking about the first one, which is swing weight, drivers can vary in weight from up to about 30 grams. Usually they range from about 50 grams weight up to about 80 grams of weight is the sort of general where most shafts will fall into category-wise. And the stiffer it is, or it states on it, usually the heavier the shaft is, because they have more material on them to make them stiffer. So that's what you class as overall weight, and that can actually affect as well your swing weight of a golf club. That's a whole different matter, and that's getting quite technical. But swing weight effectively means how heavy the head feels, or the head of the golf club feels as you're swinging it. So if we have more weight up towards the top end of a golf club, so if we have more weight under the grip or a big, thick, heavy grip on it, the driver head will feel, or the iron head will feel much lighter, and that'll be a lighter swing weight, we call it. So for people who everybody has different feels when they're swinging a golf club. Some people really like to feel a heavy head on the end of the golf club. Some people don't really like to feel the head at all. It's a personal preference. And again, it's one of the reasons why it's so important to come and try shafts out. Make sure you get fitted properly into shafts where you've tried a few variations and just see what suits your swing best. The next thing I was going to talk about was flex. So I've touched on flex again. A lot of them will just state like an actual letter. So you've got L, which will mean ladies flex. Usually there's an A flex, which is like the class as a senior flex. I don't know how correct that is or not. Sometimes I think Ping call it an SR flex, which is a soft regular. They've got R for regular, S for stiff, and usually X for extra stiff shaft. And again, they run up in order with weight, just due to the amount of material they need to use to manufacture the shafts. Well, yeah, I was going to say a point on the flex. When you're trying out flexes, don't get bogged down in what it actually says in the shaft in terms of stiffness. Try a few out, especially if you're down to a range like here, where we've got all the shafts in stock in the demos and things that you can try out. Try a variation of different shaft strengths and see which suits your feel better. I would always suggest when I'm in fittings with people that you want to have a golf shaft that you can really feel like you're in control of the club face. That's the most important thing. But also something you don't feel like you're going to have to swing out with your normal rhythm. You're not going to have to put anything extra in it just to make sure you hit the golf club. And it wants to feel nice and easy and work with your tempo as well. Okay, the next one. So next one's a term called kick point. I don't know if anybody's really heard of kick point too much, or the balance point of the golf shaft. Basically, if a shaft bends under the forces of your golf swing, it's the point that it's bending the most on the shaft. That's what we class as a kick point. Now that can affect us, our shots in launch. If you have a higher up, they call it a higher kick point, which is higher up close to the handle where it bends the most. That can actually make us launch it a little bit lower. It typically means we've got a shaft with a stiffer tip section. Because shafts aren't uniform all the way down. They have different bending profiles, which means sometimes it can be softer up at the handle, it can be softer down at the tip, and they all make them feel and perform slightly differently. So a lot of the lighter shafts will typically have a kick point closer down to the tip side, and that can help people actually get a little bit more launch as well. It's impossible to see it unless you have high-speed cameras, but at the point of impact, the shaft actually, I'll put this club head on it so you can see it there. Again, this is something you don't really need to know, but it's just interesting, all the same. So at the point under force of a swing, you'll see there's two types of bending in the shaft. One is the toe of it, the shaft, the club head will come down, so it's bending sort of down towards the ground. And the other one is when it's coming into impact, you get a kick forward, so the shaft actually bends like this coming into impact. Sounds hard to believe, but it does.
I think everybody thinks it's the other way around, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. So people think that the club's coming in and it's actually lagging behind them, leaving the face open or whatever, and you're going to hit more down onto it and things like that. But the kick point of the shaft with the forces and the way they work, it actually comes into impact like this. And that's how having a different point of bending in the shaft, if it's either higher up towards the handle or down towards the tip, can really affect how much that shaft does this movement into the ball. Again, whoever would be fitting you would sort of think about those things and probably not really even explain it too much to you, but they'll be keeping an eye on those sort of figures and things for you to see what your launch is doing. That's probably the most important out of that one. I was going to speak a little bit about torque. I remember on the hazardous shaft that said the torque was 3.5 degrees of torque. Now, torque is a torsional force, and that means basically a twisting force. So it means how much, as you're swinging into the point of impact, is this club going to be twisted open from the twists that's allowed in the shaft. Now, again, it goes up in order. So sort of a lighter shaft will have much higher torque typically, and then a stiffer, more heavy shaft will have much less torque again at the bottom, which can actually, it can help people with dispersion, so get your shots in tighter on the line you're trying to hit. Sometimes if a club's too much torque on it, which you can find with some really cheap shafts online, if you're buying sort of a cheap graphite set of clubs, they're not built to the same quality and the same specs, so sometimes they can have very high torques, and it means any sort of off-center hit can make them really vary in shape in your golf shot. So just something to watch out for. Typically, lower torque is better, but also lower torque means you lose a lot of the feel in the club. So again, it's a preference thing, and how fast you're swinging it, how strong you are, all makes a difference to what sort of torques you need. Torque's not something that can be changed, it's just something that is built into the shaft, and it is what it is. So that's why, again, it's so important to try it. So I'll quite a few different shafts, because they'll all be slightly different torque-wise, and can give you different feelings into the impact. Probably one of the last things we think about in a fit-in would be the length of shaft, and again, it can be an overlooked one by a lot of people, especially people that have never been in fittings before. But basically, strike is king, we say. You've got to be hitting close to the middle of the club as you can, and sometimes people just can't handle that extra bit of length, say in a driver shaft, and it can a lot of variation in strikes, as you'll probably see from my hitting later on, because I've not been practicing. But just sometimes taking even just a half inch, it doesn't sound a lot, but a half inch off a club can make it feel far easier to hit the middle of the club for people, and you see the results. Well, we see the results, should I say, in fittings quite a lot, especially in the longer clubs. So making sure you get the right length of shaft, the right material, and then the other most important thing for me is not the flex. The flex is a byproduct of the weight of the shaft, okay? So really dial into what you like the feel of weight-wise, and then in that sort of weight category, say if it's you like shafts that are sort of between 60 and 70 grams in a driver shaft, you could probably get 2 or 3 different flexes in that weight category, and they would be the ones that I would be urging you to try if you figure out what sort of weights you like the feel of. And those are the ones that can really affect your launch, your spin rate, your sort of peak height, how high you actually hit the golf shot. And I'm going to hopefully demonstrate that now. So the great thing about Dunes is we've got a GCQuad here. It gives us direct feedback what the ball's doing after you've hit it. So we can really delve into numbers when we want to for fittings and really just trying out shafts and things for fun. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to try, like I said at the start, a driver. I'm going to hit a ladies flex shaft, which on here says it is, does it say the weight? No, it doesn't say the weight. I think it's 45 grams, so it's very light shaft. And I'm going to hit 3 or 4 shots with each one. Then I'm going to hit a regular shaft, and I'll explain what that one says on it. And then we'll go and try an extra stiff as well, just to see. Just added clubs in, so we've got a thing. Right, so let's see if we can hit any decent shots. So first off, the ladies flex shaft. So you can definitely see it feels a lot whippier than I'm typically used to, but we'll see how it goes.
Oh, it's the one for you, Sam.
Yeah, it might be. Right, I've not really done this test before. Where I've gone right through the range of flexes, so to be interested, I'm interested myself to see what comes out of this. Tell you what, though, it feels really nice.
I'll tell you what, you've opened yourself up for a ribbon here, Sam. There's some great numbers there.
I might be coming out next year with a full set of lady flex irons, lady flex drivers. So 3 shots. Move on to the regular. Didn't expect to hit that so good.
Change the colours. Have you changed the colour? Just get a different colour, it looks better, doesn't it? Yeah, if you just click the edit one there. That's it, perfect.
I don't know, have you ever done that sort of test, Pete?
Yep.
When you do the sort of range of different shafts?
I think going on what you've just done there, Sam, I've had it where certainly the ladies' flex shafts can feel really good, especially when you've not warmed up. And I think that's what you've just seen there. I think with what I've seen you do there, Sam, when we looked at the data in a minute or two, your numbers there, the spin's a little bit high, which is what we'd expect with a more flexible shaft.
Yeah.
There's another thing, a phenomenon here, when you get a golfer like Sam, who's a great golfer, got lots of talent and ability, is there is something that happens at a subconscious level that's come from years of playing, where he can almost manipulate his swing to suit a shaft, but that said, he still wouldn't be optimised. But it'd be really interesting to see what happens with the next 2 shafts going from regular and then to something more familiar with what Sam is, the sipper shaft, yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
Let's see what happens.
Like I say, probably this sort of tests are good having a human element, but obviously with a robot, you do 9 exact same swings, that will maybe give you better results. But we'll see now with the regular. Oh yeah, I was going to say, sorry, the regular is, what is it? It's an even flow, riptide. It's 50 grams, so not too much heavier than the ladies' flex. Sorry, it's actually a soft regular, that's why it is. Not so much heavier.
I swear down, Sam, you're going to discover you've been playing the wrong shaft all these years.
Oh, it feels this good all the time. I might be switching, to be honest.
Do you remember we did that with your irons, though? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
When you had that softer flex in your irons? I mean, I'm not saying anything like that. I mean, if Chris is watching, or Fergus. He's like a machine.
See, that's the one I'd be worried about in a golf course, but I'll explain that as well in a minute.
What, the height?
Yeah. Just for finding a studio.
Yeah.
Maybe not so fine in a real life golf course.
Would just a quick one, Sam, for everyone watching. Would you say as close as possible you're just hitting these the same?
Yeah, I'm trying to do the exact same swing 9 times.
You're not going for it, because I mean, just as an aside from the shaft things, when you swing a driver on a golf course, what's your swing speed in terms of absolute maximum, or do you leave a bit in the tank?
No, definitely not. So I would say probably one of the fastest swings I've ever recorded myself doing was about 118 miles an hour. But that's me standing in the studio, I'm warmed up and I'm absolutely trying to level the golf ball. I would say on average on the golf course, not that I've measured it, but I reckon I was swinging about 111, 112, 112 miles an hour. So quite a bit less. So
there's a bit in the tank then?
Yeah, definitely. And this is probably my golf course I'm trying to feel here. I'm not trying to level above them.
It's not your long drive swing?
No. They felt out of control at home, which is interesting. And we'll move on to the extra stiff. Does it sound okay? Has anybody said anything?
Sounds fine, I think.
Yeah. So actually hitting, just now I'm hitting the brand new Epic from Callaway, which really is the first time I've hit it a few times and it feels really nice. Nice solid feeling blow. and I've got the low spinning head on it if anybody's interested. The only reason I chose the low spinning head is because that's the one that most closely matches my current driver, which is a TaylorMade Sim, which is a really low spinning head. So this now is the extra stiff shaft, 70 grams, so feels a lot heavier, a bit more stable, if anybody else knows what that feeling's like, so not so whippy in my hands. I feel like you could probably be a little bit more accurate with this, hopefully. I couldn't see it.
I can't wait to see these numbers.
I think they'll be like teamwork. That's not a little better.
I mean, it's definitely the longest.
But again, is it feeling better just because I'm more used to it? Potentially. Or does it suit my swing better? On paper, it should suit my swing better. So, can we pick up those numbers? Or?
Yep. I'll just put the that on the bigger screen. 1 second.
or not take it out as such, but definitely be aware that it was in there of a slightly off strike. And we would just work that into what our thoughts were.
I mean, I think that's a fantastic example of how a slightly low strike kicks that backspin reading up, and if you're not careful, you could eliminate a shaft that would otherwise be good just because of one or two bad strikes. Yeah.
100%. It'd be interesting to see if I took that out. What my spin rate?
Well, it's down to the low 2000s.
Is it?
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
the other
that
two.
one's up to 3.2, but that's like wire class for me is like a freakishly high.
A freak, exactly. This is where when we're fitting though,
and
we would
offset right as well. So that's short.
we'd take out those anomalies, wouldn't we? I think sometimes it's like doing a gap test. If you just purely do the average, you get a shot that you never actually hit. You've got to take out those ones, delete the 3.2. It's going to give you an average of less than probably just under 2.5.
So if I disable that one, yeah.
Yeah, so it's 2.477, which is much more like it in comparison to the ladies and the. And you could almost say, well, that second one with the ladies was actually a high strike.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely. Looks like it was.
So there's some. This is, although not conclusive, I think what is conclusive is again, strike is king.
Yeah,
and affects your numbers massively. But we would look when we're fitting at what someone's getting when they're getting a where their strike pattern is mainly. You know, where are they mainly?
Yeah, mainly. And I think the key thing for me there is the weight and everything has an effect on what the shaft, what the whole club the club as a whole feels like. But that actually can affect quite badly if you can strike centre. Again, like I said,
Sam, I've just realised something. When I went to the comments have just come through a little bit delayed when the comments come through. When we were talking about all the numbers and just had that up on the screen, there was no sound. So I'm really sorry about that, everyone. So you've missed all that. Do you want to just quickly run it across Sam again, or should we just carry on?
We could just briefly go over them. So basically, I've hit the 3 shots with a lady shaft, the soft regular shaft, and an extra stiff shaft. So right across the board of different shaft flexes. Interestingly, we thought, I predicted in my head that the lady shaft would spin quite a lot and go really high, and it's actually not done that at all. The spin's just a little higher than I would like it, but not bad. And the peak height was actually one of the lowest. Well, it was the lowest one, which was interesting for me. Total distance 285. Pretty happy with that today.
Lowest peak height could be shorter shaft, means it's also not as the ball speed was lower, so that's going to mean it goes lower
for sure. The spin, I felt least in control of the soft regular. I didn't feel like I could control the face as easily. I don't know if that was what weight it felt. The weight just didn't feel right in my hands, or the actual flex of it. But yeah, I didn't feel I could control that as much, and I got worse strikes, higher spins, and less distance. It only went 280 total, so 5 yards less. Even though it was a longer shaft, you expect it to be a bit quicker. And then the extra stiff at the end, which felt more comfortable in my hands, probably because I'm more used to it. Quite steady numbers, apart from the first one we were discussing, which was a poorer strike. It was like a low toe strike for me. And this backspin jumped up to 3,200, which is way too high for me, and I lost 20 yards of distance there. So it just shows you how important strike is. But the other two, I quite felt nice and got sort of more similar numbers to where I'd expect to see it, up to just under 300 for the total.
And your extra stiff shaft though is 20 yards further than the soft regular.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so 20 yards, almost 20 yards difference basically between a shaft that I feels comfortable in my hands and one that feels a bit sort of alien to me because I'm not used to it. But yeah, very surprising results. I didn't expect the lady shaft to perform so well. Something for the future. I might be a really good senior player when I'm older. Hopefully. Yeah, so I'm just going to delete these, and my final thing I'm going to do quickly is just hit 3 shots again, but this time I'm going to hit 2 stiff shafts in a 7-iron. One of them is going to be a graphite shaft, and one of them is going to be a steel shaft, just to see the difference. So let's just take a few graphite.
You just need to press add at the bottom, mate. I'll just leave it on that for
Just
now.
use that one. So the first one I'll hit will be the graphite shaft. Now I did research this shaft beforehand. It's a Ping I210 iron, and it's an Ulta CB, so one of the Ping graphite shafts in a stiff, and it comes out at, what's it right now, 83 grams in weight. It comes out as. And again, feels very light. I can feel the head more. The head feels heavier. I'm not sure if I like that or not, but we'll give it a go. We'll hit 3 shots and see what we're doing. Okay, strike, bit offline. Bit of a hooky one. They look like they're launching quite high to me, but we'll have a look in a minute. Feels nice again. Feels nice and easy to swing. Yeah, that one felt really good. We'll swap this over. Yeah, you see how easy it is for us just to swap over shafts and club heads when we're doing fittings. It takes a matter of seconds to be able to try different clubs with different shafts. So this one now is a Dynamic Gold S300, and its class is 105. I did a bit of research, and it actually comes out as 117 grams officially. So again, like I say, and that's a weight class 105. The actual weight of the S300, the stiff one, is 117 grams. So let's see if this differs any. Try to do the same swings again. So that's a bad strike. 2 more. Definitely felt more solid, that one, than the graphite did. So let's just see quickly what the numbers say. So having a look here, my strike was actually a little bit all over the place with the stiff shafts and the steel, which is the purple or pink ones down here. Which is why you're seeing quite a jump between the spin, the ball speed, sorry, and the launch angle. So they're jumping about quite a bit. But it did feel much more solid. And you can see that by the side spin numbers on it. So I've actually hit them better with a more controlled club face. They've only got 230, 390 and 260-ish spin on them. Whereas if you look at the graphite ones, the yellow ones up here, similar launch height, just maybe a fraction higher. Exact same peak height, which is interesting. I expected the graphite to be higher, sorry, but it wasn't. But again, a bit of variant there between the backspin numbers. The big one for me would be this side spin number. So see how they're almost double, maybe triple what the steel shaft was. And remember, the steel was with my poorer strikes as well. So in theory, they should have sort of worse side spin on them for me from a strike. But because I don't know if it's like we're saying, the amount of torque in the club or whatever, the steel shaft has more torque than the graphite potentially.
Less.
It it just feels less torque. Sorry, yeah. It just feels a lot more stable in my hands. So even on the miss hits, I feel like I'm going to hit my target better than I would with the graphite. So that's just an interesting point for myself. But again, you guys won't really know that until you come down and try a few things out. Like I say, nobody's robots in this world, so everybody has different feels, thoughts, what they like and don't like. And there's no better thing to do than just come down and try some stuff out. Like I say, we've got all the equipment down here at June's, all the top end equipment, to get you going and let you try things on the driving range, or hopefully when we're allowed to do some fittings again. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I've got to say in shafts. I would say the main point is make sure you get a shaft you like the feel of. It's all about feel at the end of the day. In fittings, it's really important for us to get the correct head types to allow you to get the numbers you want. But then at the end of the day, the shaft's more of a tweak at the end there, where you can get a totally different feel in a golf club, which can make you perform better or worse. So it's important to get it right.
I was just going to summarise, Sam, what I've learned from watching you this evening. I think one is that strike can massively affect those numbers. So if you're looking at numbers are low, you need to know where you're striking the ball, because you can get misled a little bit, which is of course what we do. As Sam's already said, the human element, that there's going to be an inconsistency there, but what we can see is where your strike tendencies are, what your ball flight tendencies are, and there's no doubt, despite there's some anomalies there, that the weight of the shaft, the flex of the shaft, etc., can really make a difference to your ball flight. And I think the third one is that certainly me, Chris, and Fergus have got some fantastic, material this evening to rib Sam, because he's definitely going to, the next set of irons he orders, I think it's going to be a graphite set of ladies flex, because the way he hit that driver at the start, it doesn't get much better than that, does it, Sam?
No, and at the end of the day, I'm open to anything, so don't never say that.
To be honest, just on that, I have a personal, wish that one day we will get away from shafts being labelled senior, being labelled ladies, and instead they are given the weight and some perhaps number or a letter that signifies how the manufacturers would determine the different flexes, because we have and we see an awful lot of golfers out there who would definitely benefit, male golfers, from the length and weight and flex of a lady shaft. And likewise, we also have ladies who would benefit from the men's shaft. And of course, we would encourage those golfers to use the shaft that performs, but we appreciate that there are some men that might not be happy going around with a ladies flex club, especially like some young boys and that have got to that strength where they're on a men's club, might not be happy about having the ladies flex club. So one day the manufacturers may get there where we actually fit for the golfer, not for a gender, and hopefully that isn't in the not too distant future, or isn't in the not too distant future. So there we go.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sam. Excellent presentation. And the final one for me is tomorrow evening, aimed at complete beginners. Really, it is a guide to starting this game. I'm going to show you how simple golf can be. If you've been on the range and you've been struggling and you're thinking of too many things, then tune in tomorrow, same sort of time. It might be just after 6, actually, about 6:05. I'm going to be out on the driving range. Billy is going to be my cameraman, and I'm going to be bringing you some tips that are going to help you to just simplify the whole game. If you've started playing in the last year, it's for you. If you haven't yet started playing, or rather, if you know somebody who has just recently taken up the game or is thinking of starting this year, point them in the direction of tomorrow night's broadcast, and I'm going to show you some really fun ways that you can get into the game without it being difficult, without it being complicated. And one of the other things I'm going to do is give you 2 myths that every golfer seems to hold on to that really holds them back. So if you want to find out what they are, make sure you tune in tomorrow night, 6 p.m. We'll see you then. Bye for now.